Good afternoon, and welcome to the Voice of Wisdom. With over 60 years of experience as an investment banker, entrepreneur, investment analyst, economist, and venture capitalist, Morty Davis is Wall Street and capitalism personified. The over 400 companies for which he has raised more than $3 billion over the years have created a countless number of jobs and exciting new products. Through the Voice of Wisdom, Mr.
Morty,
Davis explores, analyzes, and debates the most topical political, economic, and social issues facing our world today. Joining Mr. Davis today for a discussion on the war in Israel is Brett Kingstone and
give
Eman
me a
Dillon.
happiness book. You put it.
Mr. Kingstone is an inventor, technology entrepreneur, award-winning real estate developer, and generous philanthropist. Ms. Dillon is the COO of Max King Realty, a graduate of the University of Central Florida, and an Egyptian American. And now, Mr. Kingstone, Ms. Dillon, and Mr. Davis.
I want a happiness book to stand up here.
Hey, Morty. Good afternoon, brother.
I'm delighted to be back with you every Wednesday, 6:30. My favorite people in the whole world. The fact that you join me and provide me with so much wisdom. I'm called the voice of wisdom, but the stuff that you send me and your responses to my podcast are, as a Harvard professor said, president said once, he said that if he had a limited amount of funds, stop throwing things at me already. The show didn't even start. You just throwing things at me. That's my bestseller. The best book. The best book you'll ever read on happiness, on how to be happy. It's called "Make Happiness Guaranteed or Your Misery Back." It's 365 days of advice on happiness. So I like to start the program off with a brief discussion or suggestion about happiness. But first, I want to say what a nice, surprising podcast this turned out to be, because two of my favorite people, one that I know a long time, I took public, Brett Kingstone, a brilliant entrepreneur. He was a genius at a young age. How old were you? Did you have your driver's license yet when I took it?
I was still wearing diapers, Morty.
Right. Right. As part of the funding.
I was 22 when you took me public, Morty.
Right. As part of the funding that I raised, I had to raise a few extra dollars for diapers. And today, you can see on the screen a beautiful young lady, Dillon. She apparently has a daughter, so she can't stay long. Although it's not my fault that she had a daughter, so I don't know why she can't.
She's a beautiful young girl named Riley, Morty. You'd love her. She's beautiful.
But it's really delightful to have these two guests that should add a lot to the program. But on happiness, I want to tell you once again, it's up to you to make yourself happy. I want you to promise me that you're going to say, I'm going to be happy. In the 30s, people said every day in every way, I feel better and better and better. Every day in every way, I feel better. They had that mantra. And it helped a lot of them because it's all in your mind, you know? So it helps you to say that. And if you say, I'm going to be happy, I won't tolerate anything that in conflicts with my happiness, I won't tolerate my mind being absorbed by negatives or failures, or I'm only going to think positively. And even if I'm going through a tough time, think that of all the great things that are yet to come, no matter how bad things are now. I assure you, things will get better and you'll have good events in your future. So it's
Morty,
all
we're going to be happy. Eman and I are going to be happy. We're going to be happy, Morty.
Now I want the same promise from all of my audience, because that's my goal, making the world a happier place, making it a better place for all humanity. That's why we're put here, and that's why God demanded that of us. Even the Constitution, that was one of our proudest achievements, and one of the amendments, uh, if you remember, it says the instructions to future generations says we should provide, the last word is happiness again, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. That's one of
Absolutely.
life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. But before that, it says we should work to make it a more perfect union, which is a great instruction, because we should all work to make it a more perfect world. And in light of that, I'm an advocate of ending all wars, because nobody wins a war. Everybody loses. Young men and young women that ordinarily, if they weren't brainwashed to kill the other person, would be best friends with the guy that trying to kill. So there's no reason for that. It's primitive. We should be more civilized than that. After all these years, all we've learned to do is kill more effectively. Because initially, we'd have to get close to a guy to kill him with the biggest weapon we had was a big rock, and then we got like bow and arrows, the ability to hit him from some distance away, and then we got guns, and now we got cannons, and more ways to kill, and God forbid we have nuclear, and so far everything that we've ever come up with, no matter how horrific, we've used. So as human beings, we don't deserve an A or a B or a C or a merit. We deserve a flunk, an F. So the F is for
On that
failure.
note, Morty, I want to
Failure
ask
to
Eman
improve.
about how to solve this big problem we're facing right now, which is how do we, and number 7 of your question, the Israeli government, after its actions of trying to eliminate Hamas, how does will it undermine the relationship with its Arab neighbors, and especially in light of progress made with Saudi Arabia before October 7th? How should Israel care about the reaction of the Arab street? And more importantly, Amman giving us some insight on what like you mentioned just before, if the other two people met and knew each other, they probably wouldn't be shooting at each other. Just getting an idea of what she hears from the Arab American community. Would you like to ask her a question on that?
You're giving me the same assignment my wife gave me. One of the reasons, one of the reasons we lasted so long, I was married to her 70 years before she passed away 3 years
Yeah.
ago. And the way it worked out so well is we had an agreement. She assigned me the role I play, and she plays. She told me, "You take care of the big issues, and I'll take care of the smaller issues, like where we should send our children to school, what we should spend our money on, what new purchases we need to make, and so forth." And she said, "You could solve the problem between Israel and the Palestinians, between Venezuela and America, between." So I was assigned the big problems. Now you gave me another big problem. Did you talk
Yeah.
did you talk to my wife before that? No.
Maybe clairvoyantly. But Morty, maybe I should start off by allowing Amon to give you an overview of what she sees the crisis, and from her point of view, how what she sees as a solution. I think that might be helpful, and then you can ask her more questions after that.
What is her background that makes her capable of
Well,
presenting
both
that?
her mother and father are Egyptian who came to the United States. She speaks Arabic fluently. She's
Oh,
from a Muslim family, a proud Muslim American family. So I think she has a tremendous insight, in fact, even more than I do, into this issue, and specifically from the opposite perspective, which I think you can't have peace unless you understand both sides of the story. So with that, Eman, if you could just give Morty your thoughts and
She's
she'll ask you questions.
she's an ideal guest. Perfect. Go ahead,
Okay.
please.
Perfect.
Please, go
So,
ahead.
Morty, for your question, I do believe that there is a way of eliminating Hamas without undermining the relationship with the other Arab neighbors. For instance, take Egypt, who is on the border of Gaza and Israel. Egypt is working with Israel to ensure that their borders stay safe, and also progress made within Saudi Arabia and Israel. It's not an Arab thing. It's between what is right and what is wrong. What Hamas did on October 7th, I would say to you, a lot of the Arabs feel that was 100% wrong. That was a terrorist attack. It was a national holiday. They went to music festivals where children were and attacked them. That 100%, I feel like everyone can agree was wrong and was a terrorist attack. With that being said, I totally understand Israel having to retaliate. But it's gotten to the point now where people in the Arab world are not seeing what Israel is doing is okay. It's gotten to the point where over 4,000 children are now dead. But on October 7th, when they went to the music festival and killed children, we were also upset by that. But it doesn't seem that it's resonating the same way as it did when it happened to Israel, that it's happening in Palestine. Not only are over 4,000 children dead, but there's over 10,000 civilians that have nothing to do with Hamas that have now died because of this war. So I do think that there is a way to get peace and to eliminate Hamas without upsetting the Arab world. But I feel that if Israel, well, I'm not even going to say Israel, I'm going to say the leaders, because Israel is a country with many people in it, and a lot of people don't believe the way the leaders believe. But if the leaders keep continuing to bombard Gaza and kill the innocent civilians, I think they are going to have a problem with the Arab world if this continues the way it's continuing.
And
I don't
what
know.
are your thoughts on this? And Morty, I would like you to ask her some questions relating to solutions, because it's one thing to define the problem. It's another thing to find the solution. You're better at that than I am, Morty. If you can ask her a couple of questions that may lead you to get some insight on a solution to the problem, I'd appreciate it, Morty.
Okay. I think it was Golda Meir that said, I may be wrong, it may have been
It
some
was her,
other.
that famous quote. It was Golda Meir about loving the children. Go ahead.
No, that's another thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
It said if the Palestinians would learn to love their children more than they hate the Israeli kids, then there would be peace. There wouldn't be any of these wars. But I think she also said, if the Israelis laid down their guns, there would be peace. No, I'm sorry, I got it backwards. If the Palestinians laid down their guns, there would be peace. If the Israelis laid down their guns, there would be no more Israel. That part of the world, Hamas, I'm not saying all Arabs or all Muslims or all, certainly not Egyptians, because the Egyptians have been fabulous. Israel gave them, Anwar Sadat came, he got the Nobel Prize, he even attended, unlike any other Arab leader or Muslim leader, he attended the parliament of Israel, so he showed a real desire, and he won the Nobel Prize for that, but he also lost his life because of that. He was shot by his own people. So when Israel was forthcoming and the other side responded in kind, as we see, that Israel turned over the Sinai, which is far bigger piece of land than is Israel itself. And there's been total peace ever since Israel did that. And Israel has shown a tendency or a desire to have peace with the Arab world, with the Palestinians, because they not only did that, but they turned over Gaza to the Palestinians. Unfortunately, there was an election, and the Palestinians didn't win. Hamas won. So it's been having the worst enemy you could think of on your border that is dedicated in their what is the equivalent of their constitution or their direction for their leaders to wipe out not only Israel but the Jewish people. How do you make peace with somebody that's dedicated? And not only that, I don't think any, or if are any, I'm not aware of them, that one Arab country, one Muslim country, has a map that includes Israel on even the recent statement from one sea, from the
River to the sea.
what?
From the river to the sea.
From the river to the sea. Israel should be gone or something to that effect.
Palestine will be.
So can she respond to that, Morty? Can Eman respond to that, please?
Yeah, no, but I just want to finish.
All right.
So Israel's
Okay.
tried a number of times. There was a conflict between Lebanon and Israel some years ago. Not a major part, but a significant part of land that caused conflict between, and Israel turned it back over to them. So Israel has tried. Moreover, the meeting between Clinton and not Sadat,
Arafat.
Arafat and Barak. Barak
Ehud Barak.
was the
Ehud Barak.
prime minister, and Barak promised Arafat 95% of what he demanded, and Arafat came back and just started an intifada. And the second guy that did the same thing is a few years ago, not so long ago, Ahmed, Prime Minister Ahmed gave them the Palestinians the same proposition. A lot of the Israelis were pissed off at him, really angry at him, because he offered them just about everything they wanted. So it's clear that they have no desire. Moreover, let me point out one other thing. Israel had, or the Jewish people had 1 million people in Arab lands, in Muslim lands, at the time in 48 when Israel was declared. All of those people were ultimately, even before that, they were not allowed to have Jewish Bibles or synagogues in those countries, and there were 1 million Jews in those countries. Afterwards, they literally kicked them out because they were angry about Israel and so forth. And Israel, a tiny country with no resources, just being founded to try to establish itself as a real country. When it was turned over to the Jewish people in 48, it was really a desert. And the Israelis, through their brilliance in irrigation and water, what is it called?
Irrigation.
No, not irrigation is what they did with farming, but turning salt water into desalinization. I was
Right.
in Beijing, and I funded 2 Jewish girls who built a major company. They loved China from the time they were very young. They studied at Columbia. They spoke perfect Chinese. They moved there. They started a great company. They recently sold it. I raised $10 million for them. They sold it about 3 years ago for $700 million. They built new hospitals and so forth. They won awards for taking care of children in China. The U.S. State Department gave them an award because they helped the reputation of the United States being American citizens and doing that. So Israel.
So Morty, it's now.
I heard what you said.
Morty, hold on, Morty.
Israel,
Morty, 4 o'clock.
Well,
Morty,
just let me
Morty,
finish.
4 o'clock.
Israel,
4 o'clock, Morty.
just
It's 4
one
o'clock.
sentence. One sentence.
All
I'm
right.
sorry.
I have
Israel,
something to say.
Israel absorbed 1 million Jews because they're our brethren, our religious, religionist partners, and all these Arab countries that had over 1 billion people in them and enormous amounts of land, and they could have been with their own people and their own religionists, didn't let any Palestinians in. Till this day, from 48 till today, there's a camp in Lebanon that was established for the Palestinians that came into Palestine because Lebanon wouldn't absorb them. No Arab country wants to absorb the Palestinians.
But Morty, also
All right, Morty, 1 minute.
The Palestinians don't want to leave. That is their land. They want to stay there. They know if they leave, they're never coming back.
Dillon, the Jewish
You
people.
said Israel has tried.
Dillon, the
Morty,
Jewish
let her respond.
Wait,
Morty,
just let me tell her this.
Morty,
Dillon,
this is becoming a
just
monologue.
1 second.
Come on.
The
Be
Jewish
fair,
people,
Morty, be
no,
fair.
that's something that makes sense. But the Jewish people, the 1 million people that lived in the Arab lands, and they lived there for years, thousands of years, in Iraq and Iran. A lot of their books were written in Iran. It was a major part of the Jewish heritage. They didn't want to leave either, but they had to
Morty, she
leave.
understands
I
that.
understand.
She's
I
trying to
know.
give you a different
Those
perspective.
are the difference about
If you would give her 30 seconds before she picks up her daughter, Morty, we'd be grateful. Go
Morty,
ahead.
I totally understand that the Jewish people have hard a rough life, rough going. I get that. I'm not taking that away from any Jewish person. I understand. But what I'm saying is, you said Israel has tried. Have they? They literally sanction
Absolutely.
them. They put them in an
Absolutely.
open air prison. They tell them when they can get food. They
Absolutely.
tell them when they can get water. They allow them to have electricity when they want. That is suppressing people. That is making the Palestinians angrier and angrier as the years go on. Unfortunately, I read 57% of the Palestinians in Gaza are for Hamas because Hamas is, they say, is trying to bring them out of this prison that they live in every day. Do I agree with Hamas? 100% no. Do I think Hamas is a terrorist group? I 100% I do think that. If anybody can go into a different country on a day of religion and kill children, women, and terrorize them, I do not stand for that whatsoever. But at the same time, is Israel really doing their part when the people in Gaza feel like they can't go anywhere? They can't make a living for themselves. They have to wait for borders to be open on either the Israel or the Egyptian side so they can get food or water. If you, Brett, and I were living like that, would we not try to defend ourselves? Would we not try to make a better world for ourselves?
When much of the world pushes Israel for a two-state solution, it sounds terrific, but it can't be, because the Palestinians and most of the Arab world, until recently, the Abraham Accords
Abraham Accords, yes.
changed that attitude, where Saudi Arabia even is talking and Qatar is talking about being friendly and cooperative with Israel. You can't have a two-state solution when the other side is, you can only have a one-state solution with the Muslims owning it and the Palestinians owning it, because they won't even recognize Israel. That was authorized and certified by the world in 48, and immediately, as soon as it was established, before it was even settled by the Israelis, it was attacked by the Palestinians, or not at the Palestinians, by 8 other countries all around them. Israel didn't even have the Jews didn't even have a government or an army, and a ragtag army beat 8 countries: Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, Egypt. Who am I missing?
Iraq.
Anyway,
So, Morty,
I think the only only
Morty,
way to
if you let her respond, I'd appreciate it. Go ahead.
The only way to get to a two-state solution is, number one, first and foremost, Hamas has to be gone. Clearly, Hamas cannot be the leader. They're never going to get along with Israel. Okay, we all know that. In Hamas's world, Israel gets banished off the planet, and that's that. We know that that's never going to happen. Okay, so number one, how do we come to peace? We need to get rid of Hamas, but then I also think that there's crazy radicals on Israel's side who need to be taken care of as well. And then after that, then I think you can bring in an outside party, whether it be an Arab party or I'm not 100% sure, as I'm not the world's peacekeeper right now. But what I'm saying is, after you get rid of Hamas, I do think that there is a way for Israel and the Palestinians to come together with a two-state solution. You divide the land between Jordan River and the Mediterranean, and somehow get it to where there can be peace over there.
And I also believe, Morty, that she's right.
Well, why are you sticking your 2 cents in? We're having a good conversation, Dillon and I.
Okay, I'll stay out. Go ahead. You guys talk.
Dillon,
You gotta let her talk, Morty.
I just want to tell Dillon, I hate to disagree with you. You're so charming. You're so personable. You're so beautiful. And if all Muslims were like you, we'd have a love affair with the Muslims. As a matter of fact, a lot of Jewish people in Israel are marrying Muslims. I don't know if you're aware of that. And Muslims,
They're tired of arguing with each other, Morty. Tired. My professor at Stanford used to tell me, was Milton Friedman, who's Nobel Prize winner. He said, Brett, if you have one economist in the room, you have opinion. You've got 2 economists in the room, you have an argument. I said to him, Milton, if you have 1 Jew in the room, you have opinion. If you have 2 Jews in the room, you have an argument. All right. I agree with you, Morty. Go ahead.
right. But how are you going to have a peace or any relationship with somebody who's committed to wiping you off the face of the earth? And
it's not all Palestinians who want to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. It's Hamas. That's what people keep forgetting. It's not the whole group of them.
Palestine didn't accept the mandate that established Israel as a state.
Morty, it was the leaders of Palestine.
From the minute it was set up, they tried to destroy it until
Morty, it was a billionaire named Yasser Arafat who stole $1 billion of foreign aid from his own people while they're hungry. And as you know, there are 2 Hamas leaders that Forbes estimates have over $5 billion each in net worth stolen from their people. So I got to tell you something. One thing you should know. My next door neighbor was Mahmoud al-Assar, a Palestinian American. She met him. This Jewish boy, when Mahmoud felt threatened for all the robberies going on in the neighborhood, gave my Arab American Palestinian neighbor a shotgun. She was there and trained him how to use it. When my wife and my children would fly overseas, we would leave our children at his home to be taken care of by Mahmoud al-Assar, his wife Asma, his son Ramis. He taught my son Max how to play soccer. They were at my son's bar mitzvah. I was at the funeral of Asma several years ago. I was even asked to say a prayer while I was there. I was the only Jew probably in the entire mosque, and they welcomed me with open arms. It's the Palestinian leadership and some of the more radical part of the Israeli leadership that's causing the problem. It's corrupt politicians who are stealing from their people and inflating a conflict to get themselves rich. I can tell you, I've been in Jordan, I've been in Syria, I've been in Dubai, I've been in Abu Dhabi, I've been in Kuwait City. Maher Abdel Karim was my distributor doing business. You know this, Morty. You took my company public for over 25 years. And I never had a problem with my Muslim customers. In fact, I used to joke, I'd rather do business with the Arabs than the Israelis because the Arabs at least pay their bills on time. There is a way for peace, Morty. There is a way.
If you're saying there are good Arabs and good Muslims and good...
Absolutely.
We have one right here. But overall...
And my neighbor who I've lived next door to for over 20 years. God bless him and his family.
Overall, they've been vicious. to Israel from the day it was established. And Israel didn't get a great empire or a beautiful they got a small piece of land, half the size of New Jersey, and were attacked
That was
right away.
mostly desert. Mostly desert.
Yeah, and they turned it into what do you call it?
Garden of Eden. Garden of Eden.
An oasis,
Oasis.
literally. So
Morty, how do we solve the problem? We can talk about the problems of the past. It doesn't get us to a solution.
You can't solve a problem unilaterally. Well, when the other side says, we don't want you there, we're going to wipe you out if you come there, there's not going to be any Israel.
Morty, you're talking about Hamas and Hezbollah. You're not talking about the majority.
As good a lawyer you are defending the Muslims and the Palestinians and everything, there's no worse people, in a sense, than the Muslims are to the Muslims. They kill each other every single day, the Shiites and the Sunnis. Why do they do that? Jews argue, they hate each other. Like you said, they found a Jew on an island all alone. He had 2 synagogues. They said, what are you doing with those 2 synagogues? He said, that's the one I don't go to. So Jews are rambunctious, they're nasty, they can be nasty. They don't kill each other. They help each other. Play that thing. Play this. I just want to show you something.
All right, and then she's got to go, Morty. Can we play that later and just let her have her last say? And she's got Morty. It's her kid.
It's 1 minute.
Be respectful, Morty.
It's 1 minute.
All right. Okay. All right.
All right. It's no longer 1 minute.
All right.
Technology.
Morty, she's going to answer your question, and then she's going to politely say goodbye. But anyway, go ahead.
Do me a favor. Bring her back every week because we'll get a much bigger audience. The world loves a beautiful woman, so bring her back every week.
And it was I
don't care if she disagrees. We could disagree, and I could still love her, and I could respect her. I could respect her opinions. I wish all the Muslims were like her. We'd have no problem. What?
You would be surprised how many good people are of our faith is out there, Morty. And God willing, if we can bring in more people who are objective and want to solve the problem, we're going to solve it. But you know what? More wars are not going to solve the problem. So anyway, I want to let her give you her thoughts.
I hate to say you're naive, but we sent American soldiers, American women soldiers and men soldiers to Saudi Arabia when Saddam Hussein was attacked Kuwait and could have taken over Saudi Arabia in an hour and a half, even though they spend all their money on military equipment because they don't have the dedicated army and the trained army.
Correct.
And we put in our American soldiers and American women. They wouldn't let our American soldiers have a Christian, forget about a Jewish Bible, a Christian Bible. They wouldn't let our women soldiers drive without having a man in the car. That's people that we're defending and saving. They're not tolerant. They're intolerant. And I'll tell you something worse, that I never saw anything so bad. There was one ISIS town in Iraq, an ISIS city, I'm sure you heard about it at the time, where they warned the people, everybody in that city, either you convert immediately Muslim, or you leave with whatever you could carry on your back, or we're going to kill you. And a lot of them left, took what they could carry. A lot of them were killed because they wouldn't convert, and a lot of them converted. How do you tolerate that from a people that are dedicated? They're fanatic.
It's a leadership problem, Morty.
Show me one place where the Jews do that.
All right, Morty, let her answer, please. I would be very grateful. Go ahead.
But more, it's not a whole group of people. Not every Muslim on this planet.
I never said that. Definitely not all.
Let her answer, Morty.
It's definitely not all. No, she's accusing me of saying all. It's definitely not all.
Marty, nobody's accusing you. Listen.
I would vote for you. I would vote for you as head of Palestine and head of Gaza.
Right, but I'm saying in every... Okay, let's go back to like 9/11. When 9/11 happened, all of a sudden I became a terrorist. Okay, little old me, born and raised in New Jersey. All of a sudden, because it got blown out of proportion to where people thought there's this group where right now it's Hamas. Now they're thinking that everybody in Gaza is part of Hamas. And that's where the Arabs get upset. Unfortunately, yes, we do have these radicals in our religion, but they should not define Muslim people as a whole. That's where we start to get upset as Arabs. Because if anybody reads the Quran, we are not supposed to kill. We are not supposed to rape. We are not supposed to steal. We're not supposed to lie. And everything that we are not supposed to do, the Muslim terrorist organization, they give us a bad name. And that's why we start to get upset. And we get upset when we feel that people are trying to group us into one thing, if that makes sense.
I would never group you in with the other people that are so vicious. Never.
I appreciate that.
But Morty, all I could say to you is I want her to end on a note of hope and positivity, and hopefully that will carry the day. And Morty, I'm going to let her pick up her beautiful daughter, Riley, and thank you for the time.
Before she leaves. Yeah. This is 1 minute.
Brother, in 1994,
Can you hear it?
he was working at the Consul of Egypt in Gaza. I didn't say that he was the Consul of Egypt in Gaza. And what happened is he was 43 at that time. He collapsed and had a stroke. He had blood in his brain. He was unconscious. Everybody, all the Egyptians around him said, what do we do now? Do we take him to Cairo Hospital? Or do we take him to Hadassah Hospital in Israel? Do we take him to our own hospital? Our own doctors that we trust? Or do we take him to the hospitals of the apes and pigs and enemies of Allah? Each and every person around my brother said in the same time, you want him to live? Take him to Hadassah. In time of crisis, even Muslims know that they trust Jews. They call them names, but deep down inside, their humanity. Trust them. They trust that they're going to do the right thing.
And that's 100% true, because let me tell you, Morty, I did read that back in the day that when the Jewish were going to temple, they would actually leave their kids with the Muslims, and vice versa. When the Muslims were going to pray in the mosque, they would leave their children with the Jews. So my question to you is, if there was peace back then and they were able to walk amongst each other, get along with each other, leave their children with each other, where did we go wrong? Did we go wrong because of leaders?
We went wrong because we established a Jewish state in where Israel is today. And from day one, they never let it get established. The UN actually voted overwhelmingly to make Israel a Jewish state. And by virtue of that, they should have protected the Israelis from an attack immediately they didn't. Israel had to use its own people, had no army, then they had to fight off 7, 8 countries that attacked them. Miraculously, I don't know how they did it, but they they asked Ben Gurion, you must have had a secret weapon. And he said, yeah, we did. They said, we knew it. What was the secret weapon? He said, we had the sea behind us and those 7 Arab nations in front of us. We had to go forward. We couldn't go back into the sea. And that's been the case ever since 48. Before that, we got along.
So I think if we got along at one point, we can get back to that.
We can't if they're committed not to let us get back. There's no, they want a one state solution, which is
Max,
one.
They are the leaders, not the people. Morty, they are the leaders.
I'm talking about the people execute whatever they are. The leaders are the leaders.
The corrupt leaders.
The leaders are the real leaders. The people say Netanyahu is the leader. He's the leader. I can't see him do anything like to initiate it. All these years, this is not the first instance. Why doesn't he want to stop Netanyahu now? Because it's been recurring. We made peace with
Right.
with
But you've seen the
Hamas.
number of Israelis who are protesting in the streets against Netanyahu before this happened. There
That's
is
good. That's
a
because
challenge
He's
that's
on
because
both
extreme.
sides.
that's because it's a
He's being
democracy.
very
Do you know
extreme
that
with it,
it's a
and it's not helping
democracy?
the solution.
We let the Palestinians back in. The Palestinians came back in. We didn't stop them from coming back into Israel. Do you know that? The Palestinians are
So
citizens. They have members of parliament. To call it like South Africa, apartheid. They have jobs in Israel. The best jobs they have are in Israel. They come
Yeah,
every
but they
day.
just sent them back to Gaza. All the Palestinians who had a permission to work in Israel, they literally just made them go back to Gaza.
Well,
Why?
because
Why? They're not Hamas. They were
because
working in the
I
country.
told you, Gaza. Israel made peace with Gaza after each attack. Each attack, all the foreign governments said you got to stop. They want them to stop now. So they said we did it, and then we got missiles shot at us and what satellites or whatever it's called, over and over again from within Gaza, without Israel initiating anything. So what do you do? What would
Yeah,
you
I mean, but these people were living
Mexico?
in Gaza, or they were living in Israel. They
If
were working in
If
Israel.
Mexico shot missiles into the United States that exploded in areas where civilians live, what would we do? We just let them.
We're not going to kick out. I mean, we're not going to kick out all the Mexicans because most of them. I mean, some of them
We'd,
are
we'd
citizens,
start a war. We'd
but
start a
some
war.
of them are not.
We'd start a war
But
and
what
stop
I'm
them.
saying is, Israel gave them permission to be there, to work there. So they are doing the work that the Israelis don't want to do. Now,
That's
all of a
bull.
sudden,
That's
because you
bull.
have a
That's
problem
bull.
with Hamas,
That's bull.
you kick them out?
Israel had people living there that wanted to live there. Israel had to send in their own army to remove them because they were doing well. Friends of mine gave $10 million to the when Israel turned over Gaza to the Muslims, to the whoever, because
Palestinian Authority.
they said, no, friends of mine, good friends of mine, a classmate of mine from Harvard was one of the participants. They gave 10 million. I said, why did you give 10 million? They said, because we want to give them a head start to take over the hot houses and the good businesses that the Israelis are running there so they could be successful and not be a trouble for Israel. Within a year, within 18 months, all of those businesses were gone. The Israeli army came in to kick out the Jewish people there that had businesses and so forth. They rebelled. They didn't want to leave. So Israel did whatever they could to turn over different parts of land to try to make peace. Show me one instance where the Palestinians made any effort.
But that's where I feel like the Palestinians and Israel, that you're not going to see eye to eye on this, because the
Of course not.
Palestinians truly feel like Israel stole land from them, and Israel feels that
Israel
the land
never,
is theirs.
Israel
Until
never
we figure
stole,
that out, there's never going to be a solution.
Israel never stole land from them. There was never a Palestinian state. There's not a Palestinian currency. There's not a Palestinian constitution. They took a piece
So
of
what do we consider
they
the
took,
occupation?
the UN took a piece of crappy land and said here to a bunch of Jews that were homeless. In the whole world, there's one island, the little island that they gave them. That's not even impressive. They made it impressive, the Israelis, because they've had great technology. They have great people, but the ones that refused to accept it would immediately, not even a year later, the minute the Israelis obeyed the UN to become a state, they did what the UN said, and from day one. They were until this day they're rejected. They want a one-state solution, regardless of what the American president say or anybody else says. They want a one-state
So on a
solution.
positive note, I'd like to at least end this segment of the debate with her giving you her final positive statement on what she sees as an opportunity for peace, and
Okay.
then we'll let her go to her family.
On a positive note, I invite her back every week.
You got it, Morty.
Good.
I do. I mean, on a positive note, like I said, we know what Hamas did was horrible. It was wrong. We knew Israel was going to retaliate. But at the end of the day, I think it's going to an extreme level on both sides. And I think we need to figure out a way to make peace over there.
Dillon,
Whether it's
Dillon, why don't you run for president of Palestine? I'll back you, and
whether
I'll
we
get a
even
lot of.
get, well,
I'll get you.
number
I'll
one,
get you. I'll get you the money and the backing, and I'll get you the following. You run for because we need somebody with your views to lead the country.
Amen. Amen.
Thank
We'll
you,
leave it at that,
Morty.
Morty.
It was
God
so
bless
nice
you.
meeting you.
God
Have
bless
a good
you.
night.
All right.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Go take care of your beautiful little girl.
All right.
Thank you.
She's brilliant too. Very brilliant. So Morty, thank you for indulging me, but I thought it was important that it's not just two Jews on the
No,
conference, getting a
it's
perspective of the Arab
it's
Americans and the Arab people from Egypt, one generation removed. I met her father. He's a wonderful man. He knows I'm Jewish. He's treated me like a family member. Wonderful guy. And he's a hard worker. He's a truck driver. He drives trucks to the ports to unload containers that come in. Did it in California. Now he's doing it in Florida. And a good family. But again,
I
the only
suppose
solution.
I
Yes, please.
suppose that you're in favor of all these students at Harvard, at Yale, that
No,
are.
I think they're imbeciles. They're absolute imbeciles. They should all be deported. Any
But
of
they're
those people there that are
doing
illegal aliens should be deported. And I
doing
think
it.
that all the students who are protesting and supporting a terrorist organization should be evicted from Harvard, Stanford, Yale, and all these other places.
They're
But
doing
Morty, I
it
tell you,
because they're
let me
doing
finish,
it.
Morty, because I'm trying to be considerate of you. Please be considerate of me, Morty. If it shows you a bigger problem, and it's not the one the Arabs caused. It's the one the stupid liberal elites from the Democratic Party caused. Is they indoctrinated 2 generations of our students to make them think supporting terrorists is a good idea. It's shameful. The majority of those people are protesting are white kids wearing black skinny jeans, running around with all their ideas, who live at home with their parents, who are on an allowance, who are paying their premium tuitions at Harvard, Stanford, and Yale. These are kids that never worked a day in their life. They went through the public school system, having school teachers teach them all these left-wing Marxist stupid ideas, and also telling them you're bad if you're white, you're bad if you're Jewish, you're bad if you're pro-Israel. That's why they're in the streets. And it's the overwhelming majority are not Palestinian Americans. They're stupid white rich kids that are spoiled brats. And we sat back, and until COVID, Morty, we never knew how they were being taught. This is what we've got to change in our country.
Brett, you know I have enormous respect for you. I haven't invited anybody back as often as I did you, even though you really disagree with me. So I have enormous respect for you. But you know, if not a vast majority, at least a major part of those kids are Jewish. And the reason they're Jewish is
You're right.
because they identify with what they think is the underdog who's being abused. And if they had any knowledge of the history, that Israel can't be an occupied territory because they were told to go there and be a state. So you can't be occupied if you're designated and certified as a state. So they don't know the truth. They don't know, and they're just identifying with all the bullshit. And
I agree with you.
You're doing
I
the
call
same
them
thing.
useful idiots.
You're doing the same
Jews
thing.
who are out there protesting, I call useful idiots, just like Lenin called them when they were supporting communism when he took over. And what did he do to the Jews? He sent them to gulags after he took power, or he expelled them or he killed them, just like he did Leon Trotsky. I agree with you 1,000,000% with what you just said, Morty.
Are you? I want to ask you: are you pro Israelis or pro Palestinians and Hamas? Because I can't get,
Morty,
I can't get
Morty,
the, I can't get the
Morty,
conclusion. I know you're willing
Morty,
to fight for the
Morty,
Israelis.
Morty, you know me very well. I donated 12 buildings to the Israel Defense Forces, both the Kafir Marine Corps base, the Recreation Center, right now, you can see my donation to the Israeli Air Force, the 105th Readiness Complex in Israel. Whoops, Morty, I've donated millions of dollars
What
to
happened?
Israel.
It
So
disappeared.
there is no question I'm pro-Israel, and there's no question I'm pro-IDF, and I'm pro-defending Israel. But what I am telling you is I'm also hopefully finding a solution for peace. And, Morty,
I'm with
I
you
was
on that
here.
score. I'm with you on that score. But you can't make
Yeah,
peace unilaterally by yourself. You need a partner
so,
to make peace.
and hear me out. The best thing that the Israelis can do, both for the Israeli people, the Jewish people, and the Palestinian people, is to kill every single member of Hamas once and for all. They have to do it. And I'm a
Finally,
big supporter of the
you got,
Shayetet 13.
finally, you got my vote.
Yeah, the Shayetet 13. But you're not going to kill every Muslim, and there should be no even
I don't-
discussion
nobody ever
about
said.
that.
Nobody ever
I
said
hear
kill
you.
every
I hear
Muslim.
you. So I want to be very clear.
But a lot,
Okay,
but a lot of the
I
Muslims.
just
Wait
said,
a second. Wait a second. But a lot of
please.
Muslims say kill every Jew, and every
There are
Christian.
some that do, admittedly, but it's not the overwhelming majority. It's probably somewhere in the area between 30 and 50%.
I never
I
read.
haven't seen the
I
rest
never
yet.
read. I never read the Quran myself, but a lot of people say the Quran says that.
I've read
That
the
is
Quran,
prohibited every
English
Muslim.
version. My friend gave me the opportunity to read it. I can tell you this, nowhere have I ever seen a chapter in the Quran that says go out and murder the Jews. I've never seen it. If it exists, it certainly wasn't in the English translation that I read. Getting back to this point, and hear me out, okay? Um, I have friends in Gaza right now in the Shayetet 13, which is the Israeli Navy SEALs. As you know, I am co-chairman of the U.S. Navy SEAL Legacy Foundation. I am a major contributor to Atalef, which is the Israeli Navy SEAL Foundation. Okay? I have a photograph of one of my very good friends kissing his wife and his baby goodbye with his machine gun slung over his shoulder, who's going in behind enemy lines in the Shayetet Special Forces, specifically to do two things. One, locate the hostages, and two, kill Hamas leaders. And in some cases, capture Hamas leaders as they kidnapped the Hamas admiral. And now they're basically tuning him up to find out, interrogating him, very excruciatingly painful interrogations to find out where our hostages are. So believe me, I'm no dove. But you can't be realistic if you're only a hawk and you don't have an olive branch in one hand and the sword in the other. There has to be a way we could figure out to reach out to our Muslim friends and neighbors and get the moderates there to become the new leaders and to give people a life. I think Lenin said it best when he said, and I don't like him, but one sentence he did say, you never have a revolution on a full stomach. It's only when people are starving and desperate do you wind up having revolutions or wars. Also, war is a failure of diplomacy. The president we have now, and I've told you this before, is a complete incompetent idiot. Biden doesn't know where he is. He can't walk up and down the stage on his own. A real president would have negotiated a settlement before this happened, not just in Israel, but also in Ukraine. And we've got to have leaders who are proactive, not reactive.
Are
Leaders
you
who
are you
get people in
denying?
the room before the war starts.
Are you denying that Israel ever made an effort to give the Palestinians to show their how forthcoming they are?
I'm going to be very blunt to you.
Tell me if
I
they
think
ever,
Israel.
if
I'm
if
going
the
to answer your question,
Palestinians
Morty.
ever
I'm
said,
going to answer your question, Morty. I'm going to be very blunt because you deserve an honest answer. I think Israel failed their people and the Palestinian people by not having the proper intelligence, who became lax and very disorganized in being able to detect this invasion of their country. If they were able to be prepared and had the proper intel, they would have shot every one of those Hamas terrorists in behind the barbed wire of Gaza. Instead, they left themselves open to being attacked. This is a shame, and we were at this conflict because we had a failure of intelligence and a failure to react. And I'm saying to you, Morty, is the bottom line is this: we can spend the next 3 generations sending our kids to Israel to fight as soldiers and, God forbid, die. Or maybe we can find leadership on both sides after we kill every Hamas terrorist. And I fully support Israel's incursion to do so. But at some point, we have to find moderate leaders so we can work out a solution. And that's a solution where the Arab peoples, the Muslim peoples, see an opportunity to have a good life, a good education, and be able to see more to their benefit of having peace with Israel than war. And it has to be worked on both sides. That's my answer to your question.
With all due respect to you, you're certainly not a great ally of Israel because you don't recognize the difference. You're blaming Israel for not being able to kill them before they did October 7th. Show me who the Israelis should talk to make peace. Who should they talk to?
I would tell you the Saudi Arabian leaders, I think...
You're not realistic. You're denying history. There's not one effort that they made. That they had.
I'm not denying it. I agree with you, Morty.
The Oslo agreement. What did we get? What did Israel get from the Oslo agreement?
No, they violated every single agreement we have, but their leaders are corrupt, Morty. And you're right. Here's the problem. I don't have an answer for that correct question you asked me. Who's the leader? Who do we talk to? Quite frankly, Morty, certainly not Mahmoud Abbas, the Palestinian Authority leader.
You can't make peace by yourself. You got to have somebody on the other side to talk to. The only ones that on the other side are say, get rid of Israel.
It's a complicated, Morty.
They're honest.
There's no answer.
No, they're more honest than you. They're I don't know what you call it, the equivalent of their constitution or the directives.
Charter.
What?
Charter.
Their charter says we have to kill not only Israel, but all the Jews. Read the charter of Hamas.
That's Hamas and Hezbollah. I agree with you on that. So does Iran.
It's also
Iran.
Iran.
The same thing.
It's Iran. It's the Palestinians.
Iran. And by the way, if you want to know who the real puppet master here, it's Iran. They're funding these organizations.
No, but
they're training these organizations.
That doesn't help.
If you want to know,
that doesn't help me to know who the bad guy is. Doesn't help me to overcome what's happening.
But Morty, no. I would disagree with you on that one point. If you cut off the head of the snake dies. We're fighting
Israel can't cut off the Iran.
And what makes you think they can't do it, Morty? They bombed the Iraqi nuclear reactor. Why can't they bomb the Iranian nuclear reactor?
Too far away. They could alienate all the countries around it. Stop being so naive.
Morty, happened to been to those bases that were responsible for bombing the Iraqi nuclear reactor. I donated buildings to them. I spoke to their commanders. They're perfectly capable of bombing the Iranians. No problem at all.
Israel did a lot of miracles, but they can't do every miracle. And unless you wake up and realize that you can make peace without somebody that's willing to go part of the way. Show me one effort.
So what's your solution, Morty? What's your solution then? What are you offering as a solution?
Right now, the short-term solution is exactly what you said. You can't give in to Hamas and put them back in power. I don't like the idea of defeating them and having to run the country. That's not something that Israel wants to do or should do. Although my view is every war that we enter, that the United States enters, should not end unless we get the same as what we got in Japan and Germany, unconditional surrender. Because what we do in recent years is the minute we win in no time at all because we have superior, and then we put in one of their guys, and then we have to plead with them to let our soldiers be tried by American courts, or they don't give us anything. You put in a General MacArthur, you put in somebody in Germany. We didn't, after both those wars, we didn't have elections for 8 years in either Tokyo, in Japan, or Germany. You know why? Because first you got to get the people's respect and acceptance, and then you can run the country. We turned it over right away, and then Afghanistan, the leaders stole billions of dollars, and if we asked them for something, they wouldn't cooperate. The same with Iraq.
Morty, I would tell you the biggest crime that was committed against the American people was the lie that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. They didn't have it. It was a ruse to go in and take over their oil fields.
I agree with.
Okay,
I agree.
It was a big lie. Second, we should have bombed.
But you're such a dedicated Republican. The guy that did it was George Bush Jr.
You're right.
I loved his father,
Agreed.
and not only that, but he did the most vile thing you could ever think of. During the height of the war, when every country, like the Second World War, we raised taxes, we had rationing, people participated in the war, even the people at home. Bush, so it doesn't annoy the American people, didn't have a draft for the masses, so the wealthy people like Trump never served. He left at it. He said he had some doctor give him the approval that he has some, and the taxes. Who cuts taxes when we're spending so much more? Because he wants to make it everybody happy.
So Morty, hear me out on this one.
So
I agree with you.
Stop protecting the Republicans.
I'm about to agree with you, Morty. So why don't you win the
guy.
argument by letting me agree with you? I'm about to agree with you. So let me help you win your argument, okay?
Thank you.
I think the greatest loss we had in this war were the tens of thousands of our service men and women that came back missing arms and legs. I work out in Gold's Gym in Orlando, Florida. I see every day I'm there, people in their late 20s, early 30s lifting weights with a little clamp on the end of their arm or a prosthetic leg, okay? It's a shame how many lives, how many bodies were destroyed. You know, I say war is a failure of diplomacy. Sometimes there's a need for a war, but it's a failure of diplomacy.
That's a good
rob these kids of their lives.
That doesn't mean anything. What were we, the United States, doing in Vietnam? What were we doing in Afghanistan?
We had no business there.
What
came to the United States
what were we
and said, I
doing?
want to revolt just like you did against the
What were we doing in Afghanistan?
We should have been punishing the people who brought down our buildings, not invade the country.
Yeah, no,
that's what we should have done.
After the
Bombed them and left.
Pakistan.
And said, if you do it again, we'll come back and bomb you again. Simple as that. We should not have moved thousands of our troops in there.
You don't spend $20 trillion and try to make them send women to school and change the nature of their values. It's naive. And
we thought we were going to make Republicans and Democrats overnight. It never happened. And it will never will. I agree with you.
3,000 people were killed. So we go after a country? That's ridiculous. The United States, I love my country, but the United States is the most guilty of starting wars.
Well, I'll disagree with you on that note, Morty, because I love my country and I don't believe that the United States deliberately makes mistakes. But I believe that our leaders do. We have the biggest idiot we've ever had in our president's office right now. We need to get him out. We also have had Republican presidents and Democratic presidents make some pretty stupid mistakes. And it's cost a lot of young people their limbs and their lives.
I agree with that, what you just said. But you contradicted what you said 10 minutes earlier.
Which was what?
No, you say you love your country, so it never does anything wrong.
No, I think the vast majority of the American citizens are great people who don't make mistakes. I said the leaders of our country have made mistakes. not the American people. The American people, by and large, have more common sense than everyone in Congress and everyone in the president's cabinet combined. I believe that firmly. The times we've made mistakes, our leaders have failed us. It's not the American people. It's not our country. It's our leadership have failed us. And if we stop electing idiots to the president's office and to Congress, that's when things will get better.
You're a great guy.
We don't disagree, Morty. You just have to listen to me,
No,
and I
we-
have to listen to you and realize we're really not arguing.
We disagree because you say a great country like America can't do anything wrong. That's
No,
the position.
I said it again.
Not
A
America.
great
It's
country
the
with
leaders.
bad
It's
leaders
the
can
leaders.
make mistakes.
It's the leaders. The leaders are
The leaders. Thank you, Morty. That
the
was my
leaders
point.
are voted in by the people.
So, Morty, a little story, a really quick one, really quick story. I rode my motorcycle across the United States twice. I went through small towns, big cities, from literally Orlando, Florida to Seattle, Washington, and from Seattle right across all the way back through Colorado, down through Mississippi, Alabama. And I want to tell you something. Stopped at 7-Elevens when it was a torrential rainstorm. Who came out to hold my hand and pray with me? An African-American preacher. He prayed for me for a safe journey. He wished me well. He said, "Can I get you a cup of coffee?" He says, "No, I'm just waiting for the rain to stop." I actually stopped at some restaurants. I had farmers in North Platte, Nebraska say, "Come over here. You look like you're not from around here. Why don't you talk to us?" Wound up spending the night at on one of their couches at their homes and rode out the next morning. We've got a great people in this country, wonderful people. I have had the great honor to be able, through my solo ride across the country twice on my Harley Davidson Road King and the second time on my Triumph Thruxton, to really get to meet them. We have great people here. But you know what, Morty? The greatest shame is we elect the biggest idiots for the most important jobs in this country. That's the problem that's hurt this country. The people, American people, are great people. And I can also tell you, I've had a Muslim neighbor who my children stayed with when my wife and I would travel overseas. You should see how the children and the grandchildren revere their parents. And no, a television or an iPhone is never allowed to be turned on at the table when that Muslim family was having dinner. They talked to each other. No iPhones, no TVs. They believed in God, okay? They came to my synagogue when my son Max was bar mitzvahed. They came when my daughter Victoria was bat mitzvahed. There is hope. Certainly, we have to kill the Hamas. You can't negotiate with those people. They have to be killed. Agreed. But then after that, you have to, even if you really do believe the majority of the Muslims don't want a Jewish state or Israel to survive, then we have to educate. We have to get to know each other. We have to have a dialogue. We have to improve the situation where we have a dialogue and hopefully later hope. And that's where I'm optimistic. And you know, Morty, 3 generations of my family fought for this country in time of war. My father in World War II, my dad in World War I. I was supposed to go to the Marine Corps ROTC. That was my number one choice, but I got a scholarship at Stanford. I went there. I went to Stanford University instead. I volunteered to fight for Israel. I also volunteered to serve this country after 9/11. They said I was too old. They wouldn't take me. But I'll tell you something. I rather choose peace. That would be my first choice. We have to give it a try. We can't say that all Muslims are not willing to at least try to think about a solution.
We tried. Cut it out. We tried. You can't try it unilaterally. You can't make peace
So
with yourself.
do you think giving up is the solution, Morty?
No, I think we always have to have hope, but you have to have policies that recognize reality.
Agreed. And leadership that are capable of implementing. And that's why I believe there is a solution.
Israel has leadership that's capable.
I think we've got great people in the military. There's
No,
no question about it.
We've had a couple of them that have proposed everything that the Palestinians want, and Arafat still came back and started.
But Arafat's corrupt. These corrupt leaders profit.
I don't care, but that's who did it. The people should have kicked them out. We can't. We got to blame our
On
leaders.
that point, you're right. They should have voted out their dictators, and they didn't. You're right. I can't disagree. But all I'm saying to you is I'm supporting Israel. I've sent dozens of bulletproof glasses to the Shayetet 13. I have funded programs to give the settlers weapons and ammunition to defend themselves through Karen Kayemet Yisrael. I've donated money to Atalef to take care of the families of soldiers from the Shayetet 13 that were wounded or killed in the line of duty. That's what I'm doing at this moment. But I also am thinking to the future, Morty, and I hope we find a way to solve the problem.
Brett,
Yitzhak Hashem.
Brett, why don't you make Aliyah and run for president of Israel? I like somebody who's as decisive and as sure as you are.
I'm
You-
not cut out to be a politician, Morty. I don't lie, and
No,
I can't take too much
We
bullshit.
don't need a politician. The politicians are the ones that ruined it. We need a guy who's like you, decisive and knows what the end result should be.
I'd fire everybody. I'd be too controversial. I'd
Good.
fire everybody and rehire and start all over again, Morty. You know
I
that.
want to show you how important you are and what a big difference you make. Normally we finish five minutes early on this podcast. Today, how much are we over? 10 minutes already. So you're so compelling and so interesting. God bless you. I love you.
So are you, Morty.
God
You've
bless.
been an inspiration to me, my brother. Thank you.
God bless you.
God bless you
And
too.
God bless my entire audience. I love you. Hope to be back with you next week, 6:30 Wednesday. And thank you for all the input that you give. You give me real wisdom, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. And remember, make up your mind you're going to be happy no matter what. You're going to be happy no matter what. And you will be. I promise you. And if you get a hold of that book, the best book on happiness ever, it's called Happiness Guaranteed. How could you get anything better than that?
Or your misery back. Or your
Happiness-
misery back.
Happiness Guaranteed or your misery back. It's 365 pages every day. It gives you advice how to be happy that day, and it has jokes on practically every day. So at least even if you don't agree, you could have a laugh and keep laughing and smiling. That's the key to making you happy too. God bless you, your children, and all your loved ones. Have a great week.